So hello guys, welcome back to my channel. This is Siddharth and today's topic is factory method, and we are going to discuss how it works, what are the benefits of it, and how I did a small project in Unity. So first of all, what is factory method? It is a creational design pattern that provides an interface for creating objects in a superclass. So if in simple words, if I will say that if you're creating a weapon system and in the beginning you only have a sword, then you will implement it in a simple way. Like normally we switch and normally we'll add attack to the sword, that's all. Next time if we have to add a bow system, then maybe we will create a if else, or maybe we will create a switch by creating enum and then switch on based on the enum. But you see the problem, as we keep on growing, like we'll next time we'll add a shield and then we'll add a pickup. So as the things get bigger and bigger, it becomes very complex. Like you have to make changes in so many scripts, so that is not a good approach to implementing any kind of weapon system. So this is where a factory method comes. And also I'll show you one example. Like we don't want our player class to know anything about creating weapon, creating bow, creating shield. So we also want to decouple it from our player and just keep the player to just call the weapon, like to call the weapon to create. That's where factory method is useful. So one second. Similarly, we have abstract factory. So abstract factory creates a design pattern that lets you produce families of related objects without specifying their concrete classes. So we had factory method, and then there is a abstract factory. Abstract factory is like factory of factories. Like you can handle all kind of factories inside the abstract factory, and I'll show you in the videos in later parts that how I created abstract factory as well in the game. So let's start. So uh, how do I start? Okay. So usually what we when we are creating a weapon, I'll show this example by creating a weapon factory. Like how do we create a weapon factory? So first of all, I have an interface called iWeapon, and we have an attack inside this void attack, and we have two different type of weapon like sword and bow, and both of these implement iWeapon, and since they have attack class, and as of now it's just debug.log swinging the sword and debug.log shooting an arrow. This is our player class. So what it does is, in the beginning we set the weapon type as sword, and we are switching our weapon based on this type. Although it is a string as of now, it is not a correct way of implementing it, but just to showcase I have used this string here. This string we usually avoid because it is prone to human error, so that's why. But still we are this the main focus of this video is factory pattern, so we are focusing on that. So what we are doing is, with the case is sword, we are creating a new sword and using this attack method. Attack method is simple. If we are checking if we have a weapon, if we have it, then we are attacking it. So for sword and bow, we are creating sword and bow and attacking. Simple. And by the way, we have attached the script in our knight character, and we are calling it a sword. And see, we can see here swinging the sword. If we change it to bow and then play it again, we'll see shooting an arrow. So this is what. So what is the issue with this method? So the issue is player class has to focus on a lot of things, like player class has to focus on attack system. If we have one more weapon, or like inside bow we have different type of bow, then we have to make changes inside this, and then again have to make changes inside this sword and this script. So first of all, the issue is like players should not be focusing on creating and instantiating the weapons. So this is why we use a factory method. So I'll show you how we implement factory method. So now what we do, to create a factory, we create a script called weapon factory, and we'll have it as a abstract class, and we have an abstract method that returns iWeapon, and it's called create weapon. And we'll have two factory as of now, sword factory and bow factory, and these implement our abstract method, and we just return new sword for the sword and bow for new bow. And then in the player class or knight class, we will now take our weapon factory reference instead of string, and then we create a sword from weapon factory and attach it to weapon factory, and then and for weapon we'll assign weapon factory dot create weapon. So this is what we are doing, but as you can see, we are now tightly coupled with only one type of weapon, sword factory. So how do we solve this? So to solve the tight coupling, we went to our weapon factory and we turned it into a scriptable object, and then we created this asset menu for both of these scriptable object. So and then in knight script we added our weapon factory, and we kept it serialized field so that we can add our scriptable object through our inspector. And for weapon, in the beginning we created a new method called create default, because we don't want our player to know what our weapon is, what is going to be generated. We wanted to keep weapon creation separated from player. So here player will not know what is being created. It's just we get a default, like if we have nothing, just create a default weapon. I'll show you what is inside that create default, but before that we just check if the weapon factory is not null, then we create weapon and then attack at the start. So inside iWeapon we created a iWeapon create default, and uh, still it is tightly coupled to sword. If we don't attach any scriptable object, it will generate sword only, but we have completely removed it from player control. So player class will not know about what weapon to create, how to create and all. So it is like separated, the logic is separated. So now if we go to our Unity scene, and if we go to our player, we'll see there is nothing attached right now. So if we play now, since the default is sword, we should see swinging the sword. Nice. So if you want to change it, so what we can do is we'll create a folder called so means scriptable object, and we'll create bow. As of now we don't have any detail in this scriptable object, but we can add those as well. So we created this both, and now if we attach the bow to our player, we'll see different shooting an arrow, easy. So by default it will be sword, but if we add anything there, it will be according to that. But we're going to change that as well, so don't worry about that. We'll refactor that also to see. We added sword and swinging a sword, so this is there. Now we'll try to create a abstract factory. So I'll show you in just a bit. So first thing that we did is like sword, and we had earlier a create weapon. So what we are doing is like we're creating a new weapon every time it was called. So we applied a check that if we created a I weapon, and if it is null, then only create a new bow. Okay, and or else if it is not null, return the same. Like if it has been created once before, so just return that. So that way we won't be creating new weapon all the time. So that saves a lot of memory or resources. And then just to showcase our uh, abstract factory, we added one more equipment called shield. So first we created a interface I shield, and we added different option, and then we also same as weapon we created a new shield or create default for that. Then we have shield, implements I shield, that's why blocking with the shield. And same we created a shield factory, and we created a scriptable object of generic shield factory. So here also we can see we have applied our check so that shields don't get created again and again. So after doing all of this, we created an abstract factory, that is equipment factory. This will hold all kind of equipment like weapon, sword, uh, pickables items, all everything that can be equipped will be handled here. So we take a reference of weapon factory, shield factory, and then we are adding option to create weapon here. So we are calling and returning, or we are checking if weapon factory is not null, then return provide weapon, or if it is null, there is nothing, then create default. And doing all this, now we go to our player base. We don't need any references now, we just reference to our equipment factory, and we can just create our weapon and shield without knowing what's inside those. So player will just handle go to create, like call to create, not create itself. And then we have attack and defend, and this is what. So we can see we have optimized our player a lot. We can make this simpler, we can make this much smaller by just putting this here. Instead of calling this, we can just, and then same for create shield. We don't even need to have this. And now in the player, in Unity, what we can do is we create a weapon factory, sorry, equipment factory scriptable object, and then we can attach our all kind of weapon. Like as of now I have only attached bow, we can attach shield. So we created generic shield from that scriptable object here, and we have scriptable object for sword, scriptable object for bow. So now equipment factory will store all the kind of equipment, and we attach that to our player. And since both have bow, I think bow and shield are attached as of now. Let me see. Yeah, shooting an arrow and blocking with the shield. So we can see equipment factory, we have bow and shield, and this is what is happening here. We are using a bow and blocking with the shield. We can make this even lighter, like so. This is how we create a weapon factory. So now if you see, we don't even need this. We just have a start that calls attack and defend, and everything is handled by the equipment factory for attacking and for defending. So this is how we have completely decoupled our player from doing anything else. So it just needs to call attack and defend, and everything will be handled by our equipment factory. And equipment factory will hold all the required information about creation or destruction. As of now, we have only creating weapon and creating shield, but we can also keep on adding functionality to this, and it will work just as fine. This is how we have completed our example 1 of factory pattern, and actually it is factory pattern. Factory and abstract pattern. This is how we do it. So what are the benefits of using factory pattern? So first of all, as we saw, we completely encapsulated object creation, and we reduced the coupling. Like earlier it was all the weapon creation logic was inside the player class, and it was not encapsulated properly. So weapon class should have only the creation and destruction part, not the player class. So we did that. So we also, by creating factory pattern, we created a central point of control, like for creation and configuration. And we also promoted the open close principle, like there is a principle that tells the codes should be open for extension but closed for modification. So to add a new weapon class, we just need to create a new script, but uh, we but to mod but we just create to extend it. We just need to extend. We don't need to modify each and every script after its creation. We can just implement the abstract classes and interfaces, and it will keep running as usual. So that is how factory pattern helps us to write efficient code. So that's all for today. Thank you.